In a previous video, I was able to frame around the pellet stove and insulate the chimney to protect the wood surround I have planned, and to direct heat to the back of the house. I also tiled the hearth, and I'm now ready to finish the tile with grout before adding some really cool lights to the living room and putting the stove back in place. Okay, it's next morning and the tile has had time to dry all night, just thoroughly stuck down, so today we're going to go ahead and grout it. I've got my float, a rag to wipe the tile down, a sponge with an abrasive side on it. Typically they have a much larger sponge to do this, but this is such a small space, I'm just going to use a regular kitchen sponge. And that's to just wipe down and clean up your grout lines when you get them in there. Just a little stick to stir. I'm not using a whole lot, so there's my grout over there. Just need a small bucket. This will take a very small amount of grout to get this done. It shouldn't take too long. It should be dry by this afternoon, then I'll be able to go ahead and get the stove in place. And I still need to put my fresh air vent through there as well. I'm also going to change that outlet out to a black one, just so it's a little bit less noticeable. And then because this will be able to pull the stove in and out, because I put wheels on the bottom of it, I'll be able to get in here and put this trim piece in at some point later as well, when we get around to framing, putting the surround on everything. I got the grouting done. Went on a lot different than some of the grout I've used in the past. It really kind of smeared everywhere. It took a lot more cleaning up than I thought I would have to. So I had to grab my bag of rags, lint-free rags, to get in here and wipe it up. But it's looking all good now. I clean up as I go. So when I'm doing tile, a lot of people do a whole section. They come back and try to sponge it out later. I'll go through and sponge it as I go, because this stuff hardens up pretty quickly. You want to make sure you get your grout lines exactly the way you want them. So this will lighten up as it dries. It should turn into a gray, slightly darker than the tile itself. Those three in the back, of course, don't match up, but they're in the back, and it was just some extra pieces I had, so I ended up having very little waste. And then the boards will come down and cover up all the edges. So turned out pretty good. I can let it dry, and then I'll come back through and sponge it down a couple more times to get any of the leftover residue from the grout up. Typically need to do it 2 or 3 times at least. So while the tile is dry, I'm going to go ahead and work on the lights here in the living room. So what I'm using here is these 4-inch LEDs. They do not require a housing at all. I just basically cut a hole and stick them up in there. And these have got that night light feature, which we put a couple of other of those in the house as well. So that'd be pretty cool when you're in here watching, you know, TV and stuff in the evening, to be able to flip those on and off and then create kind of a light glow over your head, kind of like a movie theater. So I'm going to put 4 in for now, and then we'll see if we like the way that fits. I'm just going to put 4, 1 in each corner. We're still working on getting the stain done so we can go ahead and put the crown molding in and cover up those vents. I had a pretty elaborate plan to do a lot of woodwork in here. It's just not going to work out. So we're going to dead end it into the chimney here, and it'll wrap all the way around the room, and then it will dead end into that corner right there. So hopefully our plan is to get that done before the carpet comes. Ordered it yesterday. It'll be about 2 weeks and we'll be installing that. So I've got a bit of a time crunch to get that done. Well, I got the first slide up, and then one thing I wanted to try is taking the paper plate and putting it around your drill bit so it catches all the debris. You can see it worked pretty well. I just got to go really slow, otherwise it just spins it out everywhere and doesn't do any good. So I set my drill on low speed and then turned the clutch down really low so it doesn't go crazy on me. But these are measured 64 inches off each wall. So I came down from the underside and used the stud finder to make sure I wasn't hitting a truss. And then I went up in the attic and double checked to make sure. One of the problems we had in our previous house was that the lights were too close to the fan. And you get this strobe effect down below where the fan blade would constantly, you could see it moving, cause a shadow. That was really annoying. So the lights that I bought, not only are they recessed up in there an inch, but they should be far enough away where we won't get that this time. So I've got 4 or 3 more to do, and then I'll get up in the attic and wire it up. This last light's going to be a little tricky because in these other 3 lights I had 2 corners to measure off of to get my distance. But on this last light I do not have a corner. So what I've done is set the laser on a tripod and got it centered on the light there and follow the laser down. I don't have to measure off the wall and the ceiling because I know that this wall is the same distance. So I've measured off there out to this laser here and got my 64 inches. So now all I have to do is measure off that wall out 64 inches and then everything should line up pretty good. So I had one just posted on a video I made earlier on our King Pellet Stove we got from Tractor Supply about there being an air wash. And it's right here. You can see the gasket is covering up the vent. So I didn't even know this had one, but it's supposed to keep airflow flowing up through this crack and then across the glass to keep it from getting all sooty like this. Usually about once a week I'll come through with a razor blade and just scrape it off, and it was the same type of situation we had on our last fireplace. I went ahead and just vacuumed everything out. And I'm gonna go ahead and take these 2 screws off and then just basically cut that gasket back so air can flow through the crack and up on the glass. I'll have to see if that makes a big difference or not. Okay, so I cut right on either side of the gasket there, almost right up to the screw. If I can fold this down and put it back in, it should still press against this glass enough to keep the seal on the outside. I put that in there like that. Now there's the gap for the air to blow through. Okay, I've got that back installed, and you can see down there through the top there's a vent all the way across. So typically what an air wash does is, as the air is circulating through here, it's supposed to run air across the glass continuously, and that keeps any soot from actually attaching to the glass. Because there's a blower motor here which is constantly blowing air around, I would think that may work, although the slit is actually down here, which is pretty much level with where the top of the burn bucket is. So I don't know, I'm kind of doubtful it will work very well, but we'll give it a shot. I'm gonna go ahead and clean the glass here. What I'm using here is some glass cleaner from, was it Hearth and Grill? Got this a long time ago. This bottle is probably down about the last, right where my thumb is. We used it a lot when we had our fireplace at our last house. And then I just use a razor scraper to scrape off what I can. It actually works a lot better when the glass is hot versus cold like it is now. But I'm sure I'll be able to get it cleaned up nice and good. Okay, I've got it cleaned up pretty good there now. I'm gonna go ahead and fill up the hopper and get it turned back on. Well, to recap on the air wash, don't think it really worked. So you can see where the air came through there and there, but that's really about it. So I don't know, worth a shot, but didn't really seem to do much at all. Go and get this cleaned up and ready to go for the next round. But I don't know, I always thought air washes came down from the top, not the bottom. So I don't know.